All right, so my name is Phil. I'm a PHP developer as well. Been just writing in PHP for a while now, it feels like. One of the patterns that the pattern that I'm going to talk about tonight is the observer pattern. And it's something that I probably didn't really start to appreciate until I started using a couple of different frameworks like Laravel, Magento especially, and I'll kind of talk about some of the advantages of and where it really shines and can save a lot of time and effort. So what the observer pattern is trying to solve is something like this. So this is just a dummy class that I wrote. You can imagine maybe this is some kind of pay function. And what we have here, we can imagine pulling a new gateway, whether that's authorize.net or Stripe or whatever. We just process the payment, get the response, and then we say, okay, if the response failed, then we're going to send a payment failure notification so that we know as admins to the site that that it failed. We're going to attach the payment so we can do something with it, and then we're going to send that, and then we're just going to throw an exception. If it succeeds, great. We're going to send a notification email to the admins. Great, you got some money in the bank. Here's what happened. Go ahead and send it, and then we're also going to send the receipt to the customer. I think you can see here that what happens with the gateway is very, very tightly coupled with the payment function. And what the observer pattern is going to do is take about 90% of what's here and shrink it down, so we're really just processing the payment and saying, hey, something happened, and all these observers are going to deal with it. All right, does that make sense? So I think you'll see once we get to the end of this where it really shines. So when is it ideal? When we have this one-to-many relationship between an object, so that when one object changes state, we want to notify a bunch of other objects. So if you've ever heard of this, publisher subscriber pattern. So hey, this cup is doing something, and then everybody else in the room wants to know what that cup is doing. Then it's that cup's job to say, hey, something happened to me. Okay, you guys can do whatever you need to do, whether that's send an email, whether that's log a file, whether that's jump up and down and start dancing. That's what happens. Where it's really helpful is there could be several actions in an application that are causing an object to change state. Obviously, that's not necessarily desirable, but we could see examples where that would happen, like where we're calling a log function, where we're throwing in a logging event, and we need some observer to handle that. So when it comes to payment, you probably want a single source of authority that's processing your payment, so you don't have to go through and change that over and over again. But when it comes to logging or interacting with the database or handling errors, you could see that those things could be littered throughout your application. And you don't want to have to go through every time you change the way those function and change the way that it's built. So yeah, and the other big thing is we want to build an application where components can be altered and moved with minimal impact on other components, and that's another thing that the observer pattern starts to solve. So say hypothetically, if I process a payment, I want to send a receipt, and I want to send a notification. Say like after that, maybe what I want to do is put in the queue a notification that in 2 weeks sends something to the client and says, hey, were you happy with your product? I don't even have to change that class at all. I don't have to change the payment class at all because it's already sending out this notification method. I just have to add a new observer. So that allows you to move things around without touching the underlying code. All we're doing is adding a new observer. Does that make sense? So like I first, people hate it or love it, but in Magento, like all the time, I have to do something when an order is successful, whether that's, send metrics to, to analytics to let them know that the order was processed, and to to store that, send additional emails, let administrators know. So I used to rewrite the entire order success function. I realized this is stupid. I have these observers that I can just latch into, and I'm never touching the Magento code at all. So that's kind of when I started to see the value of it. So let's really quickly this is a little bit abstract, and I'm not a very good explainer. So let's take a look at the anatomy of what the observer pattern looks like. On that book on my desk, I scanned an image of it because it was in PHP, but I realized that was pretty bad. So I went online and found this, and there's the source of it. But essentially what we have is, you can imagine a subject. A subject here would be the equivalent of a publisher. So it's something that is something that is doing something, okay, or it is changing state in some way. And what we want to do is give that subject the ability to register not just one observer, but multiple observers, as many observers as we want, the ability to take away an observer, and then, of course, the ability, if that subject changes state or does something, to notify observers that something has happened. So, we were talking about interfaces, and when we do some live coding later, I'm going to show you. Yeah, we're gonna make sure that those three methods are in there. And what we do is we create this array or this collection of observers, and we say, when we notify, we loop through all of our observers, and we notify them that something has happened. So again, we have like this observer contract. Its only method is notify. And then we have these concrete observers, whether that's send transactional email, process payment, and then it can do whatever it needs to do. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. So let's code. I'm a little, I live coded once and it totally bit me in the ass. So, bear with me, and if I do anything stupid, don't be afraid to let me know. So let's turn on my mirroring here. I am gonna mirror because I don't think I can. I'm not as talented as Bill. I don't think I can do both. So I'm just gonna fire up a little web server here. Oh, come on now. That was right. Okay. See, I'm already nervous. Did it start? Yes. All right. Yeah. Sweet. All right. Cool. So here, what I basically have is just, as I said, a little web server. So let's start with a class called house. Oops. And so something that happens in our house a lot is people walk home with sweets, and everybody else in the house. I have 3 little kids, and they want to know what happens. They want to know what those sweets are and whether it's worth doing something about them. So we're going to create a method called, let's call it handle ice cream arrival. And we're going to pass an ice cream class to it. And then we're eventually going to do something with it. So, whoops, I want to put this under here. Sorry. Okay, so we need to create a little ice cream class. And let's say that it has, a flavor. So we'll generate a constructor that sets the flavor. Cool. So there we go. So now we have our ice cream. And let's say you can do a few things with the ice cream. So yes, exactly. So eat ice cream, and we'll just var dump. Let's see here. This. Is yummy. Okay, and I realize I need to do a getter real quick. Oops. There we go. Okay, and maybe something else we'll put in freezer, and just to save some typing, let's do okay. Thank you for putting this blank flavor in the freezer. All right, cool. All right. So you can imagine right now if when we're handling this ice cream arrival, say that we have Phil in the house, we have Bill in the house, we have Matt in the house, and all of us want to know what's going to happen when this ice cream arrives, right? We want to know whether or not we want to eat it, or whether we're not just like, no, I'm cool, man, I'm good. I don't like rum raisin. So what we could do, what I did in the case before, is actually within this function create these new classes, Phil, Bill, whatever. And then we would actually handle that logic within here. Instead, what we're going to do is create an observer. So if something happens in this function, all we're going to do is say, hey, ice cream's here. You guys do what you need to do with it. All right. So what I'm going to do to start is create an observer interface, so a contract. So we're going to say that this class is going to handle all these functions. So observe. Let's do observable. Whoops. I think that's right. Yep. All right. And if anything doesn't make sense at any time, tell me to stop. So observable. And we're going to create 3 methods, just like that we outlined at the beginning. So we're going to create an attach observer, detach, and then notify. Cool. So pub function attach. I hate how PHP Storm does that. Pub function detach. I'm in an interface. Like, yeah, that's not how you do an interface. And then we'll do notify. So this is my contract. So if I want to actually use this now, we'll go back to house and we'll say implements observable. So PHP Storm is squawking because I haven't implemented the methods that are in the contract. So the attach, detach, and notify methods. So it's pissed off. So we'll take care of that. Huh? You're jumping ahead of me. So let's also create, while we're at it, an observer interface. This is just, again, like an interface, so we know that any observer class we have will adhere to our standards. So what did I say? Update. I'm sorry?
Ice cream.
Update, yeah. So we're going to tell our observer it's always going to have this update something, so do something. Okay, cool. So let's go back to our house method and let's implement these functions real quick. Okay, cool. So one of the things we'll have to, yes?
What's the keystroke that do that?
Oh man, I gotta actually do it again, otherwise, okay. Command N, generate, Command N is in Nancy, nerd, whatever. Implement methods, and then I'm just highlighting them.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, Command N, and then that Command N opens it. Implement methods. Oh, I guess you could do Control I too, and it'll do it automatically. Cool. Okay. I've never been accused of being a power user of anything, so. Okay, so we'll do protected observers, and we're just going to make that a simple array. So if you look in frameworks, like we'll talk about Laravel later, they have fleshed this out, and it's much more elegant, but I'm just trying to show how it works, so bear with me. So obviously, if we want to attach an observer, we have to, of course, pass an observer, right? So we're hooking an observer onto this. And it's getting mad because the implements method doesn't have it. So all we're going to do is add it to our observers array. Okay? So let's go back and fix this real quick. And I'm going to jump ahead because we know when we're detaching an observer, we're also going to have to know the observer, right? Cool. Okay. So, whoops. All right, so that one's taken care of. Let's do the detach. A little bit more complicated, but still not too bad. Okay. So we'll say this, observers equals array filter. So we're going to pass in the original observers, and then we're going to filter through. And if we say true, how many people have used array filter? Okay, so if we return true to this callback, it stays in the array. If we return false, it's ejected out. Okay, so what we want to do is see, hey, is this observer that we're trying to detach in the array? If it's true, yes, get it out of there. If it's not, leave it in. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. So so O will be from this observer's O function. Jesus, there we go. We have to pass our observer to that function so it has access to it. Okay. What am I missing? Oh, closing the parentheses. Right? Yeah, okay.
Double parentheses.
Oh, thank you. There it is. There she is. All right. There we go. So we're just going to return O does not equal observer. So in that case, if If they were true, we want to get rid of it. So it'll be stripped from the observers array. Cool. Okay. So that's done. And then the last thing we're going to do is notify. So what we're going to do here is we have to tell all of our observers that something happened. All right. So for each, this is again not too bad, for each this observers as observer. And we know, and I always like to do this just so I can make sure I'm not being a dummy. We'll do observer update. Okay, so we're going to loop through all of the elements that are observing this subject, observing our house, and tell them that something happened. I'm going to cheat a little bit here and pass through an object. So we have. So here I'm just going to update this. Again, you could do some checking to make sure it's the object that you want that's coming back. So cool. So there we go. So that, trying to get this out of the way. So that is basically done. Let's do something with our ice cream. Let's say put in freezer. So we have that. So we've done something with it. Okay. As Matt said, we could always, this would get really tedious. So of every class that we had that was observable, we had this in our class, that would get really, it's not dry, right? You'd have to redo these things over and over again. So I have a feeling that pretty much in most cases, we're going to be adding an observer to an array. This is going to stay the same. This may change a little bit, but we could always override it. So let's extract it into a trait. So again, it's squawking. Does everybody know what a trait is? Okay, a trait is badass. A trait is like an includes for a class. So like like if you extend a class, you're bound to that class, but you can use traits. You can use multiple traits in a single class. So it's like it'd be like putting an include once, and give me all these functions inside this class, so you can use it all over the place. So I really like traits. Although I guess you could probably dangerously use them. I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to cheat here. Couldn't think of a good name, but let's call it observable trait. So trait, observable trait, and then all I'm going to do. So we know with this trait we're going to want our observers. So just like we did before, and then we're going to want all those methods.
I can't remember. Each instance of a trait, observers contains its own state, right?
That's a great question. I'm pretty sure, yes. Yeah, that's a good question. Pretty sure. So it's still squawking because I don't have these methods so we will no longer need this. So now our function is awesome. It's down, or our class is down to one method. So all I have to do is say use observable trait, and it's happy again. So it's like all those methods are still within here. But I only had to just use that quick includes, and Laravel uses that all the time. They use it all over the place. So,
so obviously interfaces can't do implementation.
Exactly. Yeah.
Many languages will have like something called an abstract class, where it's like an interface, but you can have base code.
Yes.
Is that kind of what we're doing, or does PHP have anything like that?
PHP does have abstract classes, and you can extend them. So, yes. Okay. So yeah, that's what we're doing really is like it's as if that's what's so PHP does not support multiple inheritance, and so what this is allowing is saying like, look, I want these functions in here, so we could do like 5 or 6 different traits, and it's like those methods are included. So
you reuse that same trait in a completely different class.
Yep. So yeah, in this case, any place I'd use observable, that just saves. So I can use this all the time, and then I can overwrite it too if I need to. So yeah. Okay. Let me make sure I did everything on my checklist. Okay. Okay. So we moved it to trait. Okay. So now let's go back to our house thing. So really the only thing we need to do here is let people know that something happened. And I'm going to pass in ice cream to my notifier. Okay, so if we go back here, if we go to, well, there's nothing there yet because I haven't written anything. So let's create a new house. Okay. So give me some ice cream flavors.
Chocolate.
Thank you.
Rocky Road.
Okay. What'd you say?
Cookie dough.
Cookie dough. All right. So we said choco. There we go. All right. And we said Rocky Road is new ice cream. Rocky Road. Okay. And what was the last one? Cookie dough. That's right. Cookie dough equals new.
Forget.
I know. Okay, and I'm like camel casing this. Let's fix that. All right, so for our house, let's handle ice cream arrival. Let's put it in there. Okay, I'm just going to quickly duplicate these. All right, fingers crossed. Sweet. Okay, thank you for putting this chocolate. Boom. So that's working, but no one's observing it yet, right? So it's notifying nobody. So let's create some observers. So out of those flavors that we picked, Rocky Road is by far my favorite. So let's see here. Let's just keep things a little neat here. Okay. Implements observer. So again, we want to make sure that we're using that contract. Okay, cool. So what is the object? Does anybody remember what object is getting passed into this update?
Ice cream.
Ice cream, yes, correct. Okay, so I can say, here, and we'll actually, type in it so I have it. So I can say if object get flavor equals Rocky Road object eat, right? Else, I didn't put a function in there, but no, I'm good. All right. Oh. All right. So let's go back to let's create a new observer. So fill equals new fill. All right. And now we have to attach the fill observer to the house, right? All right. So house attach observer fill. And again, it's letting me know because that fill, adheres to that observer contract, we're good. So God willing, hey, sweet. So there we go. So when it passed the observer through and it was chocolate, it said, nah, I'm good. Again, it notified Phil that, hey, there's ice cream in the freezer. It's Rocky Road. Oh, yeah, this is yummy. Time to eat it. Hey, it notified you that cookie dough's in the freezer. Nah, I'm good. And so the beauty of this is we could create as many observers as we want to. So we're not bound to it without ever changing that house class. We never have to touch it. We never have to touch the ice cream class. We can just keep extending it. So I'm just going to. So Bill, what's your favorite ice cream out of all those?
I wanted a cookie dough.
All right. All right, and I think, okay, so that's good. So then we just have to go back, same thing. And just attach Bill. Oops, oh, shoot. All right, there we go. Sorry, it was, because.
The strategy pattern and then chocolate lovers and cookie dough lovers.
And there we go. So none of us like chocolate. I still ate the Rocky Road. Bill was like, nah, I'm good. Cookie dough. Phil said, yep, I'm good. And Bill said, yummy. So it's a happy household. Nobody wanted the same ice cream. So yeah, that's basically how it works in a nutshell. Does that make sense? So let's try one more thing just to make sure it works. So if we detach Bill, let's see if that works. Yeah, so then his is gone. So you can detach observers. So any place in the pipeline of your application, if you didn't want an observer.
Detach them before you bring in cookie dough, after the rest.
Oh,
So then, he doesn't get to eat his cookie.
yeah, that's right. Exactly. So does anybody have any questions about what I did, or?
Well,
Yeah,
I think
sure.
It's just maybe me relating it to a possible real world scenario.
Yes.
So let's say you had like an e-commerce website.
Okay.
And you had a number of users that wanted type of sale.
Yes.
Or something like that, this would be.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Yeah. So.
Maybe a product coming back in stock.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So this is like, I think this is honestly probably the pattern I use the most. I use it all the time. And a lot of times especially like I'll show you with Laravel, you're not actually writing, you're taking advantage of what's already built. So you're not writing what we did here where we coded it out. I just wanted to show you how it worked, and I thought it was a nice illustration of it. But yeah, usually you're firing the events, so I'll show you what that looks like. So I was talking to Matt and telling him right now I am building an application that deals with Amish dog breeders. And as you probably know, the Amish do not generally use computers, so they have to work with liaisons to fill out their application to breed dogs. And so they work through these liaisons, and the administrators want to know, before these liaisons have to go through like all these checks and tests, so they have to be approved first. So they can register on the site, and then the administrators want to know, they will go through and approve the liaison so they can start registering breeders. Does that make sense? So this is actually a real live method from the application that I'm building. It's the approve method. So we're just passing in a liaison, passing in the request. We change the liaison to approved. We save them. We send some flash data back. But this is the big thing. So by entering this, now I can do whatever I want whenever that liaison is approved. So at this point, all I'm doing is sending an email to the liaison saying, hey, go ahead, you can start registering breeders. At some point, though, we could do a whole variety of things, whether that's send emails to the admin saying, hey, that person's, they're letting other admins know so that the other, like letting all the other admins that didn't approve them know so they don't have to go in and deal with it. So there's a whole bunch of different things we can do with it. So this is the event here, and again, very similar to what we just built, just a little bit more polished and fleshed out, and that's the beauty of working with a framework like Laravel is a lot of that work is already done for you. So all the observer does is, as you can see, takes in my liaison and stores it to probably should be a private variable or a protected one, but whatever. And then I just have a quick getter. The registering in Laravel, very similar. Again, we're just stuffing those into an array. So here is our event right here, and then underneath you could put any series of events that you want to fire. And then this is the actual listener. So you can see what we called update, they call handle. And all I'm doing is mailing the liaison and queuing up that email so that it sends out and lets them know that they've been approved. So kind of what you were talking about on an e-commerce platform where like, hey, this item's back in stock, or I want to know that this product's updated. For those of you who don't like XML, I hope this doesn't make you puke, but this is an example of Magento's. So controller action pre-dispatch checkout cart update item options, that's the event. And then we respond to that with an observer. So this was something where I did a site with baseball bats, and if you bought a certain number of bats, you got free of the bat wraps on it. So I just observed the cart whenever people would update their item options, and if they reached a certain point, great, then I would automatically add them to their cart. So this is my responder, again, very similar. So add lizard skins, they're called lizard skins, add lizard skins. I do my various checks to make sure that they didn't put more than one lizard skin in there, and blah, 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 blah. So that's, so quick takeaway points. Observer patterns can make well-built frameworks much easier to extend and to add your own functionality because you can just hook into the events that it's firing off, or you can add a couple of your own simple events, and then you can rip that stuff out later if you don't need it. And it creates this orthogonal programming approach where elements are completely decoupled and they're not having an impact on the rest of your application. So things like Magento, Laravel, even WordPress has hooks. I didn't actually go into WordPress to see if the hook use the observer pattern, but it may. I don't know. And then the other thing is they do, kind of.
That hook system in Drupal is an observer pattern.
Is it? Okay.
It's just, all the global functions on it.
Okay, cool. And the other really cool thing is like you can have your base classes. So we could have that house class. That was a dumb example, but if I wanted to move that to another project, I don't have to rip out the logic that's specific to that application. I can just take that class and move it over and use it again. So here's a couple of good reads. This book's old, but I still really like it. And I went through today and as I was finalizing everything and took a look at it. And then same website that Bill has, SourceMake. That's a really good. I really like that site for quick references on design patterns. So yeah, that's the observer pattern. Sorry, that was a little long, but hopefully it was all right. So,
Cool.
anybody have any questions, or is that good? Yeah.
So there's also the subscriber pattern. What's the difference between the subscriber and the observer pattern?
I thought they were the same. Because I always thought like pub sub. Yeah,
Right.
pub sub is the same as observer, like subject observer. I think
Yeah.
I don't know. Like in JavaScript, it's what? It's pub sub, right? It's
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, that's the thing. Like that, kind of like what Bill was saying. Because I was the one that asked him. Like I don't know what he was telling me what pattern he was doing, and I said I have no idea what that is. So a lot of these patterns have all these different names, and you've used them, but you don't realize that you've already used them, or in some way, shape, or form. So I don't know that. Yeah, could be. I don't know. But this is one I use like every day. So.